Good evening, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Hilaal Live. We'd like to thank you for staying with us, and of course, my colleague Kuman Shadrach for taking you through that first part of the show. Now, of course, Friday, late into the afternoon, Power Utility Eskom announced the appointment of Dan Marokane as its new CEO, which takes up the position at the end of March next year. Marokane is no stranger to Eskom. He returns after he and 3 other senior executives were suspended following an ethical stand they took against state capture, fraud and corruption. He joins the state-owned power utility riddled with major problems, least not load shedding, and that of potential political interference. Joining us now to discuss this, I'd like to welcome Advocate Stefanie Fick from OUTA. Advocate Fick, good day and thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Advocate Fick, we talk of the words poison chalice. I was going to say political chalice, but it's one and the same thing. We talk of poison chalice, and none more so than the seat of the CEO of Eskom. Is Mr. Marokane walking into another seat filled with that poison chalice?
Unfortunately, I do think so. I think that this is one job that I don't think they can give anybody enough money. It is a very difficult position to be in. Now, Dan Marokane, for all intents and purposes, has got qualifications. He seems like he's got institutional knowledge because he comes from Eskom. And, he is a qualified person. He's a chemical engineer, a petroleum engineer. He's got an MBA. So it all sounds extremely good. The worrying thing is, will this mean that there will be no more political interference? And will there be enough support for this position in order for Dan Marokane to bring about the change that is needed in Eskom?
Let's bring in the political interference a question, because we've seen over the years government continues to play its role within Eskom, and they would say, well, it's an executive duty from their part to be part of it. Now, we're not just dealing with public enterprises or the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. Whole and behold, we're also dealing with a Ministry of Electricity. So he needs to potentially satisfy 3 different spheres within government. I mean, it gets difficult, doesn't it, with regards to that, because what we have seen from each 3 of these departments is that they are not heading into the right direction in trying to solve the energy crisis within this country.
And I think that therein lies the problem, is the fact that we have 3 ministers. It also doesn't seem that they are all sitting around the same table. They don't, speak from the same mouthpiece. And you don't fix an operational problem with a political appointment. There's an enormous amount of problems in Eskom. We've heard, when Andre de Ruyter left, we've heard about vandalization of infrastructure, the corruption in tenders, et cetera. And if you're not going to get the political support, in order to get the resources to do something about the problems that has already been identified, then 3 ministers, 4 ministers, 5 ministers is not going to resolve the issue. And then again, to come back to your CEO, your group CEO, doesn't matter who that is, if he has the ability to change around Eskom, that is one question to be asked. But then the other is, will he be given the room and the freedom to do what is needed? We need strong ethical leadership, but we need to turn around the corruption, the sheer ideology of, we can haul out Eskom, and then we sit with load shedding.
And Advocate, this of course comes as obviously Eskom is looking to, break out in terms of the separate entities within the organization. And of course, this was a decision made by the Public Enterprises Department. So, he's got to deal with that also. The Public Enterprises Department would say, look, this is necessary to try and maintain Eskom and get back profitability. So there again is another challenge for him, the challenge of trying to keep Eskom as a business afloat, because we have seen they have really taken such a tumble for what was such a great power utility.
Yeah, it's sad to think that Eskom has won awards in previous years for what they were able to do. We can't lose hope. So there's, I think, a lot of hope on this new group CEO to turn this ship around. But you've hit the nail on the head. There's so many things that Dan Marokane will have to do. Hit the ground running. I mean, they say he's going to, but we have failing coal stations that is so far behind on maintenance. That's why half the time we have load shedding. We have Kuberg that's going offline because they need to do maintenance. We haven't seen the speed getting renewable energy online, getting the generation of electricity to increase that in order for the availability of electricity to be more. So there's so many things that needs attention. But again, I think we said it both, is that there needs to be, freedom in order to operationally get Eskom on the right track, and not, one minister thinking that, I'm not going to get renewables online because I'm a coal guy, or whatever the case may be. Eskom and Eskom's operational teams needs the freedom to curb corruption, get rid of the people in Eskom that is supplying the coal that is not of quality, the contracts that is only there to get money, and not to give a service back to South Africans. And to basically, I think we deserve the end of load shedding. And hopefully government will finally realize that the problem with Eskom is government. It is the fact that there's so much political interference, and that they will finally realize, but let's get the job done and fix Eskom.
Yeah, but I mean, it's difficult to fix Eskom, isn't it, Advocate Fick? Because, I mean, you've got the three ministers, you've got government, you've got the macroeconomic policies of the country. Now, Dan Marokane, for all he's worth, of course, all his qualifications may come in with, of course, very, good intentions and good plans to fix Eskom. And we saw, obviously, he had resigned due to what was happening at the power utility during the years of state capture. But it's a different ballgame now, isn't it? Because there's just too much that's going to be on his shoulders from a political perspective. And if that freedom, as you mentioned, is curbed, then he's on a hiding to nothing.
You know what? We can't sit here and say that there's no hope. Otherwise, please, I can't accept that. We will have to.
No, I think it's us as South Africans that would keep the hope. Yes.
Yeah, I can't accept that. South Africans will suffer load shedding because we have I want to say, we have a right to electricity. We have a right to a certain level of existence. And you know what? Me and you talk about load shedding. There's infrastructure in South Africa that hasn't been built. There's promises of free electricity to your less fortunate individuals. Households that can't afford it. So we're so far behind on just the social need that we have to fix Eskom. And I agree with you. It is a big mountain to climb. Is it an impossible mountain? No, because I do believe that if whoever is in that position gets the support, and we follow the plan that was laid out in order to fix Eskom, if that is followed and people are given the room to operationally get Eskom on the right track, get rid of the people that is only there, because of cadre deployment or whatever the case may be, let the people that still want to serve the people of South Africa, let them get on with the job. I firmly believe that if, whoever is in that position, don't envy them, but I think it's not an impossible task. And I hope Dan Marokane is the right person. I hope he is the change agent that we need in that position.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you there. I mean, we need a CEO that can go ahead and really solve the situation, and we hope that it is Dan Marokane. One final question, Advocate Stefanie Fick. You've heard what Andre de Ruyter said in various interviews, the challenges that he faced. what would be the main, actually the first priority that Dan Marokane would need to get right at Eskom? Bar, of course, load shedding. Load shedding, of course, tops the priority, but the other priority within Eskom that Dan Marokane needs to solve immediately to try and at least bring public trust within the power utility?
I think his first priority is to get more energy online. So your energy availability factor is the biggest problem we are facing. And that's why there's load shedding. There's not enough electricity available. I think you're sitting with a energy availability factor of around 56, somewhere there.
Just over 50,
it fluctuates. Yeah, so it is, we need to work on that. And part of that is, Medupi, Kusile, those big power stations that was just the amount of corruption that was involved there, is to get those power stations up and running as soon as possible. This just transition from coal to more renewable energy is not going to happen overnight, but we need to start somewhere. Get more renewables on board. There's so many businesses that's got solar on their roofs. Make it possible for them to feed back into the grid. Private households that already there's solar energy available, battery, gas, whatever it is. I think that is the priority, is to get our energy availability factor up and make sure that more South Africans have got access to electricity than what we are facing now. We as individuals, as South Africans, really suffer. But, as individuals, businesses, I feel so sorry for your small to medium-sized businesses that faces load shedding on a daily basis, that maybe cannot afford for their business to get, alternative electricity. I feel sorry for households where there's mothers that needs to get their children ready for school or whatever the case may be without electricity. So it's really of vital importance for the group CEO to make sure that we get more electricity available for us as South Africans.
Advocate Stefanie Fick, thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live. Always a pleasure hosting you.
Thank you.
That's Advocate Stefanie Fick from OUTA. Of course, a massive, massive task for Mr. Dan Marokane when he takes the head of the CEO seat at Eskom at the end of March. After the break, I speak to Ignatius Briel. Of course, massive controversy within the Road Accident Fund. Many of the recipients have not received their money as yet. This is due to unscrupulous action from many legal practitioners. We're going to be speaking to the Legal Practice Council on what is going on there, and of course how you as a citizen who are waiting for your money can go ahead and lay a complaint if your legal practitioner has not been assisting you. Do stay tuned to Hilaal Live.